Welcome to the Finance Committee meeting for September 17th. Our agenda tonight, we'll reorganize the committee. This is our first meeting separately since the beginning of the year, so we can do that. We're going to review the articles for the town meeting warrant. We have Alicia Day from Park and Rec here to talk about one of the articles. We're going to give an update of the Shaker Lane School building. We're going to talk about the FY26 budget process and the timeline, approve some minutes, and hopefully we'll be out of here before 9 o'clock. Okay?
Yep.
Excellent. Reorganize the committee. So we have current I'm the chair, Fred's vice chair, and Brian is clerk. And all three positions are up once again. So do we have any nominations for chair?
Well, I don't know if I can do this, but in light of the fact that we have 3 new members, and I still feel like I'm learning, and with some of the things that we're trying to do, like the budget process timeline, the meeting with departments, the blended funds for the CPC, and all of these big projects, I would nominate that we don't make a change, that we stay consistent for this year, because I think that...
So it sounds like you don't want to be nominated.
Well, no, I do not, but I don't want to say that, because Steve and Fred are retired, that you have, free time, but you have a little more flexible time to meet with people when it's needed. Brian was just talking about his travel, too. I know you've got a lot of experience, but I don't know what anyone else thinks about that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I would second your sentiments. Like you said, we're...
Assuming you would want the positions again, but...
I'm new myself and certainly not ready to take any of those positions on, so have a huge learning curve ahead of me, which I'm trying to get ahead of, but I would feel much more confident with any of the 3 of you in the leadership positions.
Sanjay and Jonathan, yeah, we could stick that. So is that any nomination and a second? Is that it for the current slate? Clerk again?
Yeah, there's not much other than tracking down the minutes, and it's about what my brain cells can accomplish.
So I have a nomination for Steve as chair, Fred as vice chair, and Brian as clerk.
I will
Do we have a
second that.
All in favor of that slate?
Aye.
Opposed?
Excuse me, Steve, what is the gentleman's name sitting next to you?
Mike?
Mike Prue.
Michael?
Prue. P-R-O-U-L-X.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Very much.
All right, passed.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
so we're ahead of
Thank you.
schedule.
We're ahead, yes. That's excellent.
Don't mess it up.
Review the articles of the fall town meeting warrant, and we have Alicia here to get her out of here. We'll deal with that article first. And this article, Brian, is...
This is going to be Article 4. And I'm going to pass over the current draft. I emphasize the word draft, so as you'll see when we go through it. So, all right.
So if you remember at the last town meeting, there was a article in the warrant for the tennis courts, $734,000.
Yep.
Coming out of the CPC for 4 tennis courts and pickleball courts at
No.
the high school. They were going to be lined for pickleball.
They were going to be lined,
Yeah.
yes.
And that has changed. And Alicia here is here to tell us about the
It
change.
has. So thank you for your time. I will try my best. This is, we have been on a long ride with this one, so
What I would ask is if I can get through the presentations, then I will happily answer all the questions, because I have a feeling I will probably be answering your questions as we go along, because it is kind of a long story, but I will try to keep it as concise as possible. So, all right. How did we get here? All right, so just to kind of give a general background on what this process has been. So the tennis court project became a necessity when we were understanding that they were going to be demolishing the tennis courts here at Town Hall, for the senior center. That site consisted of 2 tennis courts with 4 lined pickleball courts on it. So it was all of those 2 courts and pickleball all at the same time. So we tried to get ahead of it. We came up with an original location that Cooper Farm was chosen, and we contracted with Places to do a design in fall 2022. And that went through town meeting. The cost was about $1.1 million, which we felt was expensive. So we decided to take that off of the town meeting, so that did not go forward. So Ryan and I actually went back to the drawing board, and we looked at trying to renovate and use the Littleton High School courts. Actually, you and I did Cooper together. Yeah. Then we, reoriented.
To the high school, yes.
Yeah. So when we decided to go to that, we were looking at the 4 tennis courts, which Stephen mentioned. It was at fall town meeting in 2023, and we were approved for $734,000 from CPC that was approved. So what happened after that? So after that, we met with Activitas. They are a company that specializes in design of sports courts, sports fields. That's always been their main bread and butter. So we met with them. We went over the design that we had with Places. That was more of just a concept at the high school, and that concept didn't include the required setbacks. So those required setbacks for the tennis courts are about 25 feet around the perimeter, and also 25 feet in the middle to separate at that time there'd be like 2 sections that we had there. So that greatly changed the design. So I'll come back to the bottom of this, but I'll move over to this. So this was their updated design that they gave us. So one of the concerns that Mark Rombacher had was that our original design, which is on that the right-hand side, would be a east to west when it should be north to south, or flip-flop. Sorry. Yeah. So either way, when they actually put in those 25-foot setbacks, you can see that either we would have to cross the boundary line on the Indian Hill property. That's the one that's on the right-hand side where the courts are over top of that green line. Or we would have to eat into more of the parking lot at the high school, which in our conversations with the school department and school board, were that, we needed to be able to have spaces for those buses to remain. So obviously eating into that parking lot was not going to be an option. So then that leaves us with a slope site. We all know where slope sites go. So that we definitely believe that site straddling 36 King and the school department's property would have been extremely more expensive than what we had originally asked for. So knowing that, we decided to go back to the drawing board. We asked Activitas to put together a fee proposal for a design, permitting, bidding, and construction administration. So when they gave that back to us trying to think about what time frame. I want to say we got that report back either sometime in June, and that cost was about $112,000. So we were trying to figure out how do we pay for this, right, before we get to town meeting so we can have all of this prepped and ready to go. We did have town council review it, and they said that it can't be paid out of the Park and Rec revolving because it does not fall within the expenses associated with programming that we do. So we're at a place where we are trying to work with Activitas so that we can come up with a number for town meeting, but I will get to that later on. Okay. Any questions about the slope site? Because I'm going to move on from the high school. I know I said I would answer questions later, but I'm not going to come back to this one.
So, was Activitas, were they the ones who did the design at Cooper?
No. So Places Associates
Okay.
was the one that had done the original design at Cooper, and they did a concept drawing for the high school.
Okay, so the slope wasn't considered when you came up with the 734,000?
No, because at that time, we didn't know that they hadn't included that 25-foot setback that was needed all the way around the court. Because they didn't actually give us an engineered design, they gave us a concept drawing, essentially.
So that's this side, right?
That's both of those, actually, are the ones that we got from Activitas.
With the setbacks?
Yeah, those include the setbacks. So the original design that we had would have fit, trying to think of what it was. It would have eaten into like a little bit of that, the bus, but we were going to be able to move, we still would have to deal with stormwater management, but we would have had to move the lines and some of those aisles down the middle as well.
Because I thought I remembered that they were talking about putting in a road from the Indian Hill property through the high school. So it just seems to me like there should be more space to work with.
There's not, though.
So I guess I just don't know what kind of a plan was used to give us the number of 734.
Yep. So that was, we had asked Places to take a look at it. They did a concept drawing, and from that, they gave us an estimation of what they thought the cost would be. And that was the 734.
Without taking into account the actual environment there.
I don't think they realized that they needed to have that. So that's the difference of checking in with a company that does specifically sports, which I think they do more like civil engineering kind of things. So it was, helpful to go to someone who they know what is needed and required for sports.
I guess I'm just puzzled, because we've been talking about this project for like a year and a half.
Oh, more than that, I know.
Okay, so this is just a general about this town. How do we get multiple years into a project and then find out, oh my gosh, it doesn't fit? So that's one. And the other thing is, so we encroach on the buses. That's never been a sticking point in the 2 years that I've heard this talked about, because people said, look, the buses can park up top behind Indian Hill or other places. I mean, so we encroach on where the buses park. And I mean, as I've heard, that it's not even our responsibility to provide parking for the buses. So I'm very puzzled.
I'm speaking from my conversations that I've had with the superintendent, with the school board, and that was something that they had asked of us, is that we do not eat into that parking lot. That's something they did not want to support that. So we have contrary communications, I think.
I understand them not wanting, but I want a pony. I mean, we don't always get what we want.
I hear you.
So I guess I'll go back to my original question. How do we get 2 years into this and decide the folks who designed this made such a catastrophic mistake?
Right.
And if they're the ones who made the catastrophic mistake, shouldn't we fire them and go with someone else?
Well, we're in the process of doing, yes.
Okay.
So those are the things that I had explained up to this point, yeah.
So how many designs have we paid for so far?
Well, the design that we did you, Ryan and I, we did the one at Cooper. And then with what money was left over, there was like a little bit of money left over, that's where we got that concept and the expense report from places. So that's it thus far.
And the reason we didn't follow through on Cooper was because the price tag was too high to build.
Correct.
Well, not exactly. I think that the other, I think conversations took place between the school committee and the select board also, and changing gears on this and saying, yes, we've got something we could maybe do at Cooper, but wouldn't it be better to do it, to build tennis courts closer to the school?
And yet they won't give us the land to do it.
Welcome to our committee.
And like,
So these things are different conversations that do not include what we're doing right now.
I mean, they could have the
These are
matches
side
at one
conversations,
location as
yes.
opposed to.
So, yes, I know, there's a rabbit hole with all of this, but I'm presenting tonight, hopefully, a solution to all of this that will be a much more affordable option. So, all right, so I'm going to continue on. Here we go. Okay, so background, continuing. Since we knew we had to go back to the drawing board, Tim Mahowski, he is working with, we have a sports council. So essentially that's all of the presidents, vice presidents, schedulers for the youth sports organization. So Tim, Mike Lynn, who's the athletic director for Littleton Public Schools, and those members from the sports council met, and they decided they would just kind of like have this discussion. What could we possibly do that we can address making these tennis courts, and then is there anything else that might, like, how do we do this? Like, right, put all the chess pieces out, put them together, try to figure out what fits. And they actually came up with a really good solution. So I'm gonna talk about that after this. So the objectives that they pulled together were, we want to be able to replace the courts like for like that we had here at Town Hall, right? We have the estimated cost of the $734,000, which we have with CPC right now. I didn't mention, so these projects that are included are also listed in the 2016 and 2023 Open Space and Recreation Plan as goals. And they are, the fields components are mentioned in the 2017 Gale Field Need Study that we had. So the plan to build the new pickleball courts, right? We had talked about that as being like something we would do down the line at Indian Hill. So we estimated that at being around $750,000 if we were going to do I think it was like 4 courts. That I'll show you when we get down in here. We've come up with a solution for that, so that would nix that whole project off. So we wouldn't have to pay that. We also need to address the shortage of fields at in town. It's been listed on the capital plan since 2016, and it was one of the major reasons that we had the field need study completed in 2017. Gale, in 2017, estimated the cost of a new field at $1.1 million. That is something, again, the solution. We would nix that off of the list. We wouldn't need to do this. And then the last component on here was to improve Whitcomb baseball field to the quality of Jet softball field. So currently, when we did alumni field, Jet field was also included in that. So the softball field used to be out at the high school. We had all kinds of issues with it. It was, there was drainage issues. It would be swampy. So that was created along with alumni. So oddly, you never hear about this. This is like an inverse Title IX issue. So the girls have a much better facility than the guys do. And realistically, they should have equal playing fields. No pun intended. Pun intended, I guess. To be able to improve Whitcomb Field so that can come up to the quality of Jet. So Gale estimated that to be about $650,000. If we just do some of the components, which I'll show you when we move through the next couple of slides, we can reduce that down to $300,000 to get it up to a good playing ability. So with that, with this new plan, hopefully we should be able to save about $2.2 million over the cost of like all of these projects. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to explain. So this I threw up here if you wanted to see this. This is actually from Gale, so that shows you the numbers that they had determined. Again, this is 2017, so add whatever inflation percentage you'd like to add. But you know, those were valid in 2017, so they would be more expensive now. All right, so we will start off with converting the existing high school tennis courts to multi-use courts. So that would mean essentially what would happen is the courts that are currently there, they would be resurfaced, they would be fixed, repainted to include those 2 tennis courts and then the 4 pickleball courts, which is what we had over here. So you get a like for like on that.
That has already happened.
That has already happened, so we'll get to that at the end. Yes, that's correct. So build new tennis courts, but the site that we saw and thought would be the best ability for the space that we had was at the Littleton Middle School field. That field in the past, it's the one that's right next to the gym. That field in the past has been used for lacrosse, for football. We've used it for a myriad of different things. It's not used very much at this point. They might have some younger soccer kids out there just practicing, but for the most part, that's really not being used.
Would it be four courts there?
I'll get there. Yes. All right, renovate, enhance Whitcomb ball field to bring it to the level of Jet. We already mentioned that. And then we would move all of the town soccer to the Littleton High School fields. So currently there's 2 baseball fields there. We would not use those. It would only be for soccer.
Excuse me, but
Yeah.
It's high school soccer.
High school soccer, middle school tennis.
And Kerper stays, so you have
Kerper
that
stays.
as
So
well.
so soccer would have Kerper as a full-size field, and then the high school has 3 with the potential of having 4.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And then this, we just threw this on here because this is something, again, we're trying to think about this stuff ahead of time. You know, we can hold off on doing anything with those baseball fields because currently the high school does. It's massively underused since the sewer project was out there and they put out the leaching field. So they would need a lot of work to be brought back. But we could not touch them in case baseball is somehow affected by the Shaker Lane project. That's something that we potentially could use. So that's like, it really doesn't have anything to do with this, but that's just, keep that in the back of your head. All right. So the tennis courts. So this is the the middle school location. Sorry about that. And you can see, obviously, we would have the direction of the field being the correct usage with the sun. We would be able to have 4 tennis courts in there. And we threw it in there just so you could see the size of it, that you could still have an 8v8 soccer field next to the gym. That would remain grass. That wouldn't change to anything else. That would just stay the way that it currently is. So that's essentially the design here. We did have a meeting a while ago where we did speak with Dr. Clenchy, Mike Lynn, Ryan, Jim, you guys were there, Principal Everhart, and everybody seemed totally fine with being able to do this at the site. I think Mr. Everhart was concerned about, the kids being able to have space outside. But as I said, this spot where you see the 8v8 field would still remain a grass field. There is some space behind the school, and they also do have access to alumni as well. So that would be the location that we would be looking at. So some of the positives of this. If you've ever been out to this field, it is already completely flat. There is no there's not a lot of site prep that would need to happen. We have had verification that there are not utilities in that area, so that would not be an issue that we would have to work with. So, we're under the understanding that this would be a much simpler build than the high school site would have been. Because, we're not going to be interfering with the parking lot. The drainage, we've already been told was built bigger than it needed to be, so we're not going to have to do any work for stormwater management. So, essentially it's do some light site work, be able to get the slab down and fences up and paint and surface and paint. So this should be a much more simpler process.
Do I see lights on that?
They may have put them on there because Tim just, when they put out designs for Activitas, they want to just throw it all out there. So, no, I don't believe there's any suggestion of having lights out there. I don't know that we can. Because again, utilities, I don't know that there's electric to do that.
Okay. And presumably we're okay.
I don't know.
That wasn't all the other, sorry.
So that's a question, yeah, I guess that's the lighting thing is a question we can come back to. I'm not 100%.
I'm just thinking,
Yeah.
down the road, someone's going to want to put lights there.
Yeah.
And if the site's already torn up, put the conduit down.
And I think that's what Saul was mentioning, is that had been mentioned,
Okay.
yeah.
And presumably the high school is okay with providing the
Transportation?
busing for their teams, and the middle school is okay with providing locker room space and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so this is, like I said, Mike Lynn was part of this process of kind of coming up with this game plan, and this actually does help the school because in the past, they had been providing extra busing to bring the kids out here to play. So now that, so now they have tennis out there, they'll have baseball, they have track, so those kids are all going to be able to be bused together. So it should hopefully reduce some of the busing for them. Yeah.
And since there's a pause, and so I can jump in with the question, it strikes me that you could do this part of the project alone and not do any of the other pieces.
So that has come up as well. However, we talked about a solution for all, right? So at the very beginning when I said we wouldn't have to do the new field creation, we wouldn't have to build the pickleball courts, like all of those things, it all matters. Like they're kind of like a set of dominoes, right? You take one out and it's not going to work. So with having the Whitcomb component to it, we would need that, or else, I'll show you in slides coming forward, you would end up with having baseball back at the high school field, which that messes everything up again.
Why?
So I hear, go ahead.
Why would they have to go back to the high school?
So he's saying if we didn't do the Whitcomb field, that more than likely, because of the size that it is and the infrastructure that's already there at the baseball field, it would make more sense to probably go back to the high school than it would with Whitcomb, sorry. The other issue that we run into, I'll pop a couple slides ahead here. So this is the problem that we have. So because that baseball field is there, it affects, so anytime baseball is being played, those three fields cannot be used. And this was part of the 2017 study that you know, if we're trying to figure out how we're going to use the space that we have resourcefully, if we get rid of that baseball field, now you have 4 full-size fields that you can use, right, at all times. So soccer wouldn't need to be anywhere other than the high school or in Kerber. That's it. We wouldn't need to have leases with St. Anne's or anywhere else.
That's behind her.
This is the high school.
Okay, but,
So this is what it would be. This is the current use.
okay, and they can't use this field?
They are using that field now.
Okay.
My understanding is, and correct me if
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
wrong, what they're looking to do is upgrade that field to be closer to Jet Field.
Right.
But that's,
Right, but so what I'm
So
saying.
that's why I was saying, like, let me get through everything first before we get to the questions, because it is confusing. So I want to make sure that we get everything covered.
I'm happy to wait. I don't know if it's, well, I have questions about the tennis courts. Back to
Okay,
that
you want me to
slide.
go back to it?
But I can wait. It's up to you. Whatever you feel comfortable doing. I wrote them down, so it's fine.
Awesome. So let's finish
Alright,
all of
fine.
this and see if I answer the questions that you guys have. Okay, so I'm going to go back a few. So we talked about this, then we talked about tennis courts. Okay, so currently Whitcomb, not only is it used for baseball, we typically have about 5 smaller soccer fields out there. Sorry, this is, great question. Yes. Russell
Oh, that's the
Street.
track, okay, I got you.
So, yeah, if you see that red part, that
Okay.
is the outdoor track. So this is just that baseball field that's next to that. So this is another field that we massively overuse. If we could, again, the idea concept would be turning this to baseball only and not having soccer fields in the outfield. Because typically there's probably about anywhere between 4 to 5 soccer fields that we do paint out there, depending on the season. Typically, it's heavier use in spring than it is fall.
But those are the mini fields, those aren't full-size fields.
Right.
Correct, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, sorry, we're just questioning kind of folks. And so those little soccer fields would then go where?
Everything would go to the high school. You can fit the little fields inside the big fields.
those two.
So we have the 2 on the side. That was just a concept if we decided to, in the future, if we wanted to be able to resod those baseball fields and completely turn it into soccer, that we would have extra space to do that if that's something that we wanted to, or if there was further growth in soccer as time goes on. I mean,
You have 4 regular size
mhm.
and 8 minis, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how many are there, how many full-size fields are there now? Just 2, right?
So I'll go back to this photo. Nope, going too far. So currently, the 2 on the right side, those have just been opened. We had Light and Water had put, I guess, and Sewer had put the leaching field out there. So this whole field has been closed for probably 2 years now.
Right, but before that, there were 2 full-size fields there.
There were 2 full-size fields there. However, we were majority just scheduling the 1 because anytime there was baseball usage, which you're looking at the high school, if they had a middle school team, which I think they did back then, and any of the youth baseball, that would compete in, it's a safety issue. You can't use that other field. Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
so this actually would give us 2 extra soccer fields.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to get to.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Yep.
didn't you say you didn't want to do anything with that land? Would they have the leach field and all that
Oh, no.
right away?
No. Yeah,
Okay.
it's ready to go. We've already been painting it. They've been using it. So,
Okay.
yeah, this fall, they're out there already. So, with this, one of the questions was like, oh, well, what do you guys have to do to this? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. We just paint it and put the 4 fields out there. That's it. We just wouldn't schedule any baseball usage at all. So that is fine as it is. All right.
So you end up with 5 soccer fields.
If you include Kerper.
4 plus Kerper. So if you want to let one rest, you're
You
down-
got it.
You're down to 4.
Yep.
Which is a heck of a lot better than what you have now.
Yep, yep, no,
And-
I'm getting there, I'm getting there.
And that was, again, in 2017, like, I came in 2016, and when I came in, the fields were absolutely dismal, and I can't tell you how many times I had to close the fields. I mean, Mike can probably tell you how angry parents were at me, but it was a safety. Well, but I had to, I had to close them.
Right,
So it was a safety issue. So we don't ever want to go back to that place. And one of the things that Gail had suggested is if we can get into a rotation where we're able to shut down a field for a year, then, that's going to help us in spades. The other great thing about if we're able to just use this for soccer fields, you can actually shift them and change the rotation as needed. So there's tons of different options to us to be able to maintain these and make sure they stay in good, proper order.
Fair enough, okay.
So to
Okay.
do that, you're moving the baseball field from
To
here
Whitcomb,
to Whitcomb. And what
Yeah.
improvements at Whitcomb are we talking about?
yeah. So Whitcomb, here we go. I know, I'm like, there's so much stuff. I'm sorry, guys. So with Whitcomb, you're looking at around, it would be, so AIR did something very similar to this just this year, and Activitas was involved in the design of that one. So they said for us to be able to do that creation of a full fence, obviously that's another safety issue. You would need to be able to have that, a warning track, dugouts, batting cages, on-deck circles, bullpens. We would also need to look at doing some netting behind because I guess there's been some issues with errant balls falling into parked cars, which we wouldn't want that to continue. But the cost of this for the project over in AIR was about $300,000. So that full renovation that they talked about in the Gale study was about $650,000. So that would, cut the cost down on that by just changing these things. You would have a very similarly comparable field to what we have at Jet.
Right. And just saying, while that's better, could they use this Whitcomb field as is? What I'm wondering is, can they be
Right.
separated to smaller bite-sized pieces for the town?
Not really, because it's just one of those things where it's like, I hate to say this, when we start parceling out different projects like this, it just doesn't get done. And it's one of those things where, sure, we could do some fixes here and there. A majority of the stuff is for safety purposes that we would need to do, right? The full warning track, doing the creation of that full fence. But they still need to be able to have, I don't even think there's dugouts out there, is there? Do you know?
There's, I think, like benches behind chain link fence.
Right, which is not acceptable. That's like a safety issue. So,
Well, the chain link fence protects them. I don't
Well-
know if it was.
Right. I guess what I'm just saying is, just because we're all about triage. you
Yep,
know,
I hear you.
And,
Yeah.
in fullness, and if we weren't in triage, I'd say, hell yes, and put lights on it, by the way, while you're at it. But is that field any worse than what the baseball team currently uses?
That is what they currently use.
So it's,
So they use that at least this past spring. I think
Yeah.
the spring before too, if I'm
Yeah,
not mistaken.
because the one at the high school's been closed.
Right.
So it's either we fix the one at the high school, which is gonna be in a massive amount of repair, or we
And you
can,
lose 3 soccer
and you
fields.
lose
Right,
3
right.
soccer fields,
So
or
So
you
from what I'm
can
hearing,
upgrade this.
for $300,000 extra,
Yeah,
we're picking up essentially 3 extra soccer fields.
Yeah. so you did
And-
that new field creation, gone. We don't have to do it.
But I think that's not the right way to phrase it, because if we do the tennis court thing and keep baseball at Whitcomb, you still get the 4 fields, okay? It's a question to me of, and I'm not saying I'm against it, I'm just saying it's a question for me of, do we spend the $300,000 to improve the current status quo of baseball or not? Because whether you do that or not, you still get the 4 fields. So I don't think it's fair to say, if we do Whitcomb, then we get the 4 fields. We get the 4 fields anyway. It's just a question of, do we give the baseball team a better field? And I'm not saying we don't. I'm just saying that's how I'm looking at the trade-off.
And to put yourself in the school department's shoes now. Their trade-off is they're giving land next to the middle school for tennis courts.
Right.
Hate to say it, but what's in it for me type of thing.
But they're predominantly going to be, well, I don't know about predominantly, but they're going to be used by the high school
Right.
team and a middle,
I agree.
scholastics.
Right.
Right.
And
So-
they've said, we want to keep the buses where we want them. It's like, okay, then what's in it for us? Then what's in it for us? You know, I mean, we can play that all day long.
Where did the 300,000 come from? I mean, not the same type of designer who did the 734,000
No.
before. This is the
No, Activitas
Okay.
is the company.
And so what is Gale then? Gale is a design
Great
company?
question. Thank you for asking that. So Gale is a company that we hired back in 2017 to do a field needs assessment.
Okay.
Yep. So we have like a field master plan, and we've used that to create a fair amount of the goals that we have in the recreation side for the 2016 and the 2023 open space and recreation plan.
Okay. And Activitas does the actual, they're the ones that actually know what the cost is going to be, but they don't actually do the building, that still has to go out to bid to someone
Correct.
else who has to meet those prices.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the
Just so I
300
follow.
come out of CPA?
That's a great question. So, yeah.
Sorry, I'm in Techland, CSA,
I love it.
CPA, C, whatever. You know what I mean.
I do. So I jumped past one of the slides, but this is where we are right now, right? So one of the things that town council did look at was that they did determine the rehabilitation for Whitcomb would be eligible for CPC funding because it's obviously not a stadium.
Okay.
Right, that was from Ibria, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so we get never don't want to say free, but that comes out of CP.
That's what we'd be looking to do, yes.
Has CPC approved that?
They have not, right? So that's why when I talk about where are we right
So they may
now,
say no.
right? So just to kind of go through this, yeah, so I just want to go through this really quickly and maybe this will answer some of the questions. So where are we right now? So we're working with the town administration office to update that CPC article and trying to figure out how to change it from, because we need to update the location. It was very specific to the high school, so we would need to change that location. So with that, we need to figure out how much it's going to cost, right? So currently we're working with Activitas to obtain what that's going to be for the middle school courts and that rehabilitation of Whitcomb before this town meeting. Sorry, I'm like losing my voice now. So before we went to CPC, we wanted to make sure the school board was okay because this is a location change. So we did go before the school board on September 12th, and they did approve the use of the middle school as that new location for the tennis court, and they did approve the plan to rehabilitate Whitcomb. So a lot of this, the one before this was like, why the delay? Right. Obviously, we would have loved to have been, way ahead of where we are currently. But as we started the process of, reaching out to boards and committees to start discuss this plan, Whitcomb Field was selected as a potential site for Shaker Lane Architects for a rebuild. So we were just told to hold off until a decision was made either way. And then just recently, the top 3 designs were sent off to MSBA, and Whitcomb did not make the cut. So that allowed us to jump back into this project. What else do we have? So our next step would be to go talk to CPC. I know Steve had asked us to come talk about this tonight because you guys were, looking at the articles. And this is, there's lots of questions, right? So, we wanted to be able to answer those. And that would be, our next step would be to go talk with CPC and see where that goes.
Thank you for a great presentation, and thank you for putting up with
It's so long.
our questions. I will say, initially, I was like, oh my God, what are they doing? But you won me over.
Yep. All right.
No,
We'll take it.
So the financial ask will be whatever's on top of the 734 to develop Whitcomb, or to redevelop?
Yeah, we're still trying to figure out a couple of things. Like, we've talked to some of the sports organizations, and I know they were interested in putting money in, but it's like, I don't know if anyone's gonna say, yeah, we're gonna pledge X amount of money to it. So, hopefully, we can talk to baseball, soccer, and see if there's
My question is, so we've
sure.
already approved 734,000 from
Yep.
CPC.
Mm-hmm.
The ask at town meeting potentially is going to be whatever it costs to redevelop Whitcomb Field.
Yeah,
So that's in the 300,000 area?
yeah.
I thought the courts at the middle school were going to be cheaper to build.
I believe that they will be, but we won't know that until we get that idea from Activitas. So I don't want to, this is if I tell you guys a
Okay.
number, it sticks, right? So I have no idea truly what that will be. My understanding, looking at the complexity of the sites, is that I would assume that it should cost less than what the high school site would cost.
We'll have a number prior to town meeting.
That is our goal.
But your price from places, when we did the original
Correct, yeah.
article, was for a design that really wasn't.
I know, yeah, I know, that's a fair point
So
too.
you're still up in the air.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
One more crazy ass question. if I
Yeah.
could. So we're gonna have 4 courts over here, and then 2 tennis and pickleball courts over here. Always looking to so that would be 6, and we've never had 6. So do we need these 2?
We do. Well, we do in the fact that if we were going to go forward and do the pickleball courts in the future anyway, it's already there. So one thing that it allows us to do is, I think one of your concerns you had was public access, right? So during the school day and when they're using it for, practice and tournaments and things, the school's gonna be using it. Whereas if you have a different location that has those tennis courts and pickleball courts that they're not gonna be using for that, now the public has access to it. They're not gonna, so it allows.
So the public has access to the 2 or the 4 pickleball courts during the day.
They should do, yeah.
Even if school is in session.
That's the idea, yes, because now
Is
the
that
beauty of it.
That's the idea, but is that the agreement?
We haven't come up with an agreement yet, but I think that's what makes the most sense, because you can have the public park over at 36 King, which we just purchased, we're renovating, and they can access the courts from that side.
That's fine, but I think that needs to be,
We need an MOU.
that
Well,
needs to be
yes.
agreed to.
Yeah.
because
MOA, MOU, same.
Whatever it
Yeah.
is. And I would hope that they'd, see value in allowing that to happen, because
Right.
it's, a lot of the seniors play during the day.
Yeah, it was crazy when it was here, it was
So
busy all the time.
I'd want to make sure that was agreed to before town meeting,
Interesting, okay.
before we go.
Not to put you on the spot, though, but what do the Park and Rec commissioners think of this?
We're in favor of it.
You're right, okay.
I have a few rapid fires.
Oh boy, here we go. I
Actually,
missed the mic rapid fire.
The first one's probably more for Ryan. Wasn't the development that was supposed to be senior housing, that isn't senior housing, by the high school, supposed to give us tennis courts as part
They
of the
did.
deal?
Yeah.
They did?
They're awful. They built them on top of where the sewer is, so the court itself undulates, and around the outside, when we were talking about that 25-foot buffer, there's actually sewer plates in those buffers.
Yeah, in fact, I think within,
not safe.
if you're playing doubles tennis, the actual manhole
Yeah.
is in the component court that you'd play, which is,
Love to know how that got approved.
It's a good fun thing to go take a look at.
Already answered that one. So, has the school committee mentioned anything about 5 courts instead of 4? Not to make the price tag go up, but they play 3 singles and 2 doubles, if I remember, if I'm correct on that.
We said 4. We're not doing more
Okay.
than 4.
Okay. And then why not line the new tennis courts for pickleball as well?
It is. It's already
It is.
done. Oh,
No,
you
the
mean
new ones.
the new ones?
Yeah.
So what we said is that right now, Groton has just built a huge pickleball facility. In Acton, Quail Ridge has also built a huge pickleball facility. If that's something that is requested and that people are looking for more spaces, then we should have that discussion. But to start out, having the like for like makes sense because we were fine when we had the 4 courts before.
Okay. I drive by Hudson High School, bringing my son to hockey all the
Yeah?
time, and their tennis courts are all lined with pickleball. They have the nets on wheels, and it's usually
Yeah.
jammed.
So just to give you an idea, if we were to do that in the future, it's only a couple $1,000s to put the lines down.
Okay.
So it's for short money, you can do that.
Have you talked to soccer about this plan?
Yes,
And they're in favor of it?
they're all in favor
They're
of
not
it.
worried about logistics at the high school?
Nope,
Because, I mean, Sunday, or
I know.
Saturday mornings right now
I know,
is crazy in that parking lot.
yep.
Okay.
So soccer, baseball, yeah, they're totally in support of it. I mean, we haven't really had the conversation with lacrosse because it doesn't affect.
Yeah, they're mainly
Yeah.
alumni.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you mentioned being able to, if we do this plan, you'd be able to shut down fields.
Yes,
I assume you're talking about like 1 or 2 of the big soccer fields behind the high
One.
school,
yeah,
one at a time,
correct.
not entire
No.
fields. Okay.
So if we needed to be able to rest a field for a season, or even, I think, was it last year we took Kerper offline? It was
2 years
either,
ago.
yeah, 2 years ago. And that was like, we desperately needed to do that. So now we won't have to be in the situation of being like desperately needing to do things. It's just it's part of the maintenance. It's what we do. We shift and rotate.
Okay, thanks. I'll just say one last thing. The status of or the shape of our fields right now, compared to when I was on the Park and Rec committee and we brought on alumni,
Yeah.
is night and day. I just went up. We had our first soccer game up at the new where the leach field is.
Yep.
2 weeks ago, and I was amazed at the quality. We have the best fields of any town that I go to with my U10 daughter. So, thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Anything else?
So once you get rid of Mike, things got better.
That's what I heard.
It was either me or it was alumni. One of the
All right.
We are going to hear the same presentation.
Yeah.
Just about next Monday night, we're at our joint meeting with the select board, so.
Yes. It will be Tim. I will not be here.
Do you think we'll have any numbers by then?
Questions for Alicia, get to her, and
Maybe.
Yeah.
That's, I don't want to promise anything,
No, I
but
mean,
that is
yeah.
a
But
maybe.
they're
Yeah.
actively working on them then?
Yeah, we are actively working on them. So, yeah, that's why I was like, I don't want to commit to it. But
No. I mean, it's just that I know
They were-
Tim was working on it with them
Mhm.
and trying to get something because, for the next meeting, if we have that, obviously that
Yeah.
makes it more informed, as well as the fact that it serves as a natural launching point for you to go to the
Yep.
CPC and ask for the supplemental amount.
Right. The conversation he's had with Activitas was like, if we can please have it by Monday night.
Mhm.
So I know that they're trying hard to do
As
that.
long as they're working on it, right?
What is your schedule to vote the articles?
It would be at the next, at the meeting on the 23rd on Monday.
23rd.
So, yeah, so we can always, if there's, I mean, you can't vote on this if there's no number, so then otherwise I'd probably say for the select board and the finance committee that you'd refrain from making any recommendation, as well as the CPC, because they're going to be having to hear this after the fact, and before, after the warrant goes to print. But, nothing we haven't done before. I mean, it's,
Good. Get on
Anything else?
CPC's schedule, because
Okay.
that's the linchpin.
Yes. Thank you seriously for your time. I
Great
do
job.
apologize how long it
Really.
was.
Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah, I would just follow up on Fred's suggestion
Yeah.
too, because we're, with CPC, they have to organize it and everything, where you are that close.
I know.
To be able to then, to then get on the schedule, and as well as Carolyn's been reaching out, trying to know what's going on. Right now, what you'll see when we get into the warrant, there's no other items, it's just yours. So,
Yeah.
but that's a great suggestion, Fred, because it allows them to make some planning and.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think that's a number. So-
I'll reach out first thing tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Right, no pressure on you, got to stay on schedule, you got 2 minutes.
Usually I get this treatment at the select board meetings, like, why did you make everything so short? Like, we never would have finished that way, so, but be that as it may. So we handed out the draft warrants. I want to emphasize I don't have this marked as draft, but this is in fact draft, so I got up to about, this is not necessarily the standard I would normally like to do, but I know Steve wanted to have something, so I think I got up to about Article 6 and sort of ran out of steam. So, but enough that I can walk you guys through everything in terms of where we're at. So, right now, it looks like we're about 12 articles here for the special town meeting. So, one thing I want to highlight for you that it was an article that we had in that we'll are going to have as a request for both the select board and the finance committee to vote on, would be to amend the spending limit for the revolving fund for Parks and Rec. They were just here, so it looks like they're going to be spending more than the 1.5 million that we had allotted at the annual town meeting. So it doesn't mean that they're countering that with revenue, so it doesn't impact our bottom line, but still it's kind of something we find ourselves chasing a little bit as their programs.
What do you think you're increasing it to?
I think right now it's 1.5, so probably 1.8, I think is what we're looking at this point. So I just, it's just where we see the spending going on and the programs going on at this point. So. But we can go through the warrant. The first thing is a report of the Shaker Lane School Building Committee. A few weeks back, Finance Committee was part of that presentation. I know we have Shaker Lane on as a separate discussion item, but basically what this is just a 10-minute report of the committee that we'll be working on. So we have I would note we have 2 other meetings between now and the special town meeting to get ready for that. So that is also going to be a joint meeting with the Shaker Lane School Building Committee, Finance Committee, School Committee, and Select Board. So they will be posted as that. They're going to be taking place at the Police Department. I should have written those dates down, but I think we've already gotten out to you, so always pencil those in.
Those are the listening sessions?
Yeah, listening sessions, but also too, I think we also, one of the things we want to do with it, Brian, is that with where this is going to be a presentation at town meeting, I think that we're looking for feedback from all of the committees in terms of things that they should be including in the presentation, maybe things to maybe de-emphasize, things to emphasize more, things you want to see more of. So because I think they're trying to make it as balanced a presentation as possible at this point. And don't forget, we're very early in this project. Any of the numbers that we're looking at are basically based on square foot. So we'll talk more about it, but this is the placeholder for that 10-minute presentation. One of the questions I think either Fred or Steve asked me is whether or not the town moderator would allow for questions to come in after. I think it's something I want to follow up on, because doing the presentation without having that time, I think might be, I don't know if that would be fair to town meeting to not allow them to ask those questions. So, but bringing that feedback to the town moderator is important, especially too where we only have a 12 article warrant. So
We also asked him about his flexibility with 10 minutes. I mean, this is the biggest project the town has done. I think it may warrant more than 10 minutes.
I think, yeah, I think that's fair to say. So it's sometimes Tim he does get a little fixated on those things, but I think this is important, and that, this is if you're going to make an exception, this would be it. This would be it. So.
And I guess just a general comment that about how much input the full committees are going to have on this presentation, because I don't think I'm the only one who thinks that the Shaker School Building Committee went way too far for way too long without involving the full select board, full school committee, and full Fincom. And I think the last meeting was kind of a disaster, and I'd want some assurance that whatever we're presenting at town meeting, the full committees and boards have a chance to have some meaningful input, because when we tried to have meaningful input at the last meeting, we were basically told it's too late.
Mm-hmm.
So I know my intention for those 2 meetings in August is to go over the presentation, that first meeting, get input from the 3 boards, and then come back in that second meeting with the recommendations
Yep.
of the town.
Thank you.
And we have a building committee meeting tomorrow night, and I know that I'm going to bring that up when we start talking about those meetings. That's my intention.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Brian, we can. I'm going to save my comments on that until we get to the item on it. So,
Sure.
Yeah. So, Article 2 is, if we can go through the rest of the warrant, Article 2 is my least favorite article to bring back bills of prior years, but there was a point when the tenant had left the orchard and left really a mess. So we had multiple staff that we hired over the summer to get rid of that. These are the dumpster bills that came with that, because the project really didn't have a home. The bills went to the wrong location, and now once they started to chase this down, then we realized this was a bill of a prior year that we had to take care of. So it's about it's $2,776.40. Article 3 is amending Article 11 from the October 17th special town meeting. Basically, this was an authorization at the time of $2.5 million.
Excuse me, right, and pardon me, but
Sure.
you said you're charging it to a 72-digit long account. What is that?
Oh,
What were you
that's
charging?
the Nagog Hill Orchard
Okay.
account. So yeah,
It's Gone Orchard.
yeah,
Okay.
right. That's
Yep, thank you.
and I can make a note of that too. I can add that detail. That's helpful. Thank
Yep.
you. So the next item is to amend a borrowing authorization. So this was done. $2.5 million was asked for the sewer project, and there was a reference at the time that in this that a MassWorks grant would be utilized to offset this cost. We ended up using the $2.5 million for what they would call non-eligible MassWorks grants. So we have to sort of correct this. It's a little bit of an administrative thing that we have to fix. But the money was spent on the project, but funds that aren't otherwise allowed to be used. So I have, I'm following up as to what types of things we spent it on, and just wanted, that'll be forthcoming here. So it's really more administrative in nature, but frees us up from being a little too over-prescriptive in what we've put together. So that brings us to Article 4, which we had heard about earlier from Alicia. This was the presentation. So basically, it's proposing to strike the prior language and to present the new language here. So I had shared this, I had sent this out to Tim and Alicia earlier tonight. We, of course, can't put any numbers here because we don't know what those numbers will be, as you heard from the earlier presentation. But, and then at the bottom, I just tried to give a little, a quick overview of what this change would allow us to do. So this is essentially the...
So the 334 is what the town
Right.
said that we could short-term borrow for this project, pay it off over 3 years as our extra contribution to CPC for those years.
And we're not proposing
And
to
that hasn't
change that.
changed.
No, see, that's why I left that number in there, because that number would stay the same, and then the other amount would change, because that would just be coming from the CPC fund balance.
Okay.
So, okay, that's that. Article 5 is to add in the Schedule D permanent employees. This is our call firefighters. So we are in negotiations with our our full-time firefighters. That is still happening in progress, but we made a determination here. The thinking is we just didn't want to hold up our on-call folks, and this basically is consistent with the step process that we made available for our Schedule A employees, so 2.5% increases in COLA and 2.5% increases from step to step. So this is basically just it's a catch-up on that, so to add Schedule D. The next item, this is really where things get leaner in the document before you. I take responsibility for it, but that's just, again, this is draft. So Article 6 is to amend Article 4 of the November 1st, 2023 special town meeting. This set aside $400,000 for what the article references as what do we say? Professional services on with the rehabilitation at 36 King Street. So basically, that's sort of limited to architectural OPM services, but we only needed about $300,000. So when we put the budget together for this, we had sort of assumed that the $400,000 would be available to us. This basically we'd be looking to add in for construction as well.
Was it at the senior center, not King Street?
So Article 4 was, so this was to be expended. I actually have the article here for it, so it
It was
was.
$1.5 million for design for the senior center.
So this was for, so this Article 4 from the 2023 town meeting is for, it was $400,000 for the renovation of the former Indian Hill for professional services for 36 King Street.
So we need to do the same thing for the $1.5 million for design for the senior center.
That's, okay, that's right. I think that's, okay. We will have that for the next version. Okay. All
So we have
right.
13 on it.
13 articles, thank you, okay. All right, that's the 1.5 million, I think we had limited it,
Yeah.
yes, okay. Now that you say that, thank
Well,
you.
we don't have to do it, and eventually it'll come back to free cash, and we won't spend it on something.
Yeah, okay, all right, thank you, thank you for that reminder, Steve. So we will see another article on that same sort of theme that when we put the monies in, it was overly prescriptive, and this just frees it up so that it can be used for either or. So we're not asking for more money, we're just making it a little bit more flexible. Okay. Article 7, this is basically, I've added in the template, but I can share with you what we're looking at in terms of articles, if you could hand that down. So basically, this is something we do on a regular basis. I think it's also recommended within the our financial management policy to go through older warrant articles and clear those out. So what we have here is, you can see from the available column, we basically have reached out to all of our departments and said, okay, these are old articles, and there's still remaining balances in them. What's available? And with that, we would want to take the net result of that. In this case, this is $160,139.70 that we would then put toward basically other building needs. And we've done that fairly consistently, and what that's done is basically set aside a pot of money that, if for whatever reason, it's hopefully not, but that if, say, a boiler goes in this building in the middle of winter, we then have a place to get larger capital projects squared away. And now that we have a building facilities manager, I knew this day would be coming, that he's saying, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? And so he's still getting his feet underneath him, but we are starting to see
It's
some
about
of those things.
$160,000 worth of thoughts.
Not yet, not yet. That's, if anything, I think the Finance Committee is learning about me, is just how cheap I am. So whatever I can do to make this, make every dollar count, I'm trying. So basically, this kind of gives an overview of the different things that were available. The larger one in here is, well, it was for school ones, high school roof study. So that was an engineering study. And then there's Article 9, high school update. That was for security alarm panels, that they didn't need the entire, I think it was 60,000 that was set aside. So basically it's and then the 76,000, that is for the stormwater permit. I think they had spent through and done the initial study on this, and that's available. I would also note that there's another 10,000 available for the bicycle pedestrian master plan. We're going to kind of think some more about where to spend that. I just didn't have a spot right now for that. So we that is also going to be available too. So but basically this is the scale that we're looking at and reallocating it, and most of it I'd like to be able to put into this, our building, we have a fairly broad definition of building needs as it comes up. So
Seeing the school roof sparked a question. How far out are we from being able to use the MSBA funding for the school roof? It's got to be coming up in the
I think
next
it
couple
is,
of
yeah.
years.
So I think this is one of the things in the conversations that Fred, that we've had with you and Steve about trying to push that forward. There's a separate, MSBA has obviously the big projects. They provide funding for Shaker Lane, renovation of that. But they also have separate projects that include roof replacements and windows, and the programs have changed over time. But this is not an uncommon thing, and of course a new roof does allow to extend the useful life. So I think one of the messages that I've heard from both of you is before we entertain looking at any of the roof replacement projects, that we look at what the timing of that is and have that discussion with the school department regarding whether or not we're going to be adding that to the capital plan.
But MSBA tends to move at glacial speed, so if we need to get on the list, or we need to, how soon?
It's an interesting point, because it's, even if you were to say, okay, well, we know that maybe it's 2 years out.
Right.
Well, why not put in an application potentially?
Right.
So
so that we don't start it 2 years after we could have started it. That's all.
Right.
I don't know what the answer is, but
right, and I think it's also pertinent in terms of the fact that these are larger dollar projects,
right.
And often they have to happen during the summer. So I've been a part of one of those. It was one of the more challenging tasks that I've had in my career, where maybe we can, I think the question was asked, can we delay school for a couple weeks? I think, no, no, we can't. That was not an option. So those are that is something we certainly are going to look at, and I'll try to message that in my conversations.
I don't know whether
I think we're at like 22 years and it needs to be 25. I mean, we're right in that.
getting close.
range.
Yeah.
Right.
And my concern is that it takes 2 years to get on the list. So if you don't put your paperwork in now, we're out at 28 years and 27 years. So
No, it's a good point. Article 8 is something similar to that, to this question of something that's closing out, and how do we reallocate that? So what this is, this article set aside $50,000 for master planning for the Nagog Hill Orchard. This is, just to give you guys, the Finance Committee an update, we put out an RFP for lease. We've answered questions that came in toward the end of last week, and we expect to accept RFPs for the rental of Nagog Hill Orchard. on this upcoming Friday. So far, we haven't received any applications for that. I'm not sure what will happen. There's no guarantee that we'll receive any, but there's been some interest out there. There were 2 separate sets of questions that we answered, posted that back up to the website, which basically gives shares those answers with anybody who's pulled the RFP. So we've been, there's certainly interest, but we'll see where that takes us. We're separately getting ready to potentially engage with the monies that was provided to us through the transfer for MAPC. And it looks like we have a grant for that as well, so we may not need to even use that reserve fund transfer. This is a separate item, but it's also somewhat related. So this is $50,000 that's available for that we could repurpose for a more general use under NAGOG if we were, or put into that. It could go to the balance for our other building needs. If you remember, we also requested in the select board and the finance committee granted a transfer request of about $18,000 for tightening up the buildings that are there. So arguably, if we freed up the definition here, one of the thoughts that would be we could do we could basically charge the $18,000 to this $50,000, and then again more monies are then saved for the reserve fund transfer. I think this is really probably a conversation that we probably need to have at that meeting with the select board, because I think when I brought this up with Matthew Nordhaus, he was saying, well, maybe if we just hold on to the 50 and just say that it's available for other needs, and, potentially. So that's really up to the finance committee, up to the select board. I think if anything, I just wanted to remove this from the restraints of a master plan. So, and make the funds available for some other use, which it doesn't necessarily have to be NAGOG related, but certainly we potentially could have some needs there on that front as well.
Let's discuss this before we get to the select board.
Yes.
Well, it was my recollection that we authorized something in the order of $65,000 or $70,000 that night.
Right, so
not just the 18, right?
Yeah, so the other thing was the assistance from MAPC for
sessions.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, for what?
The sessions they're organizing to get public input, like we did with the MBTA.
Okay,
right?
so
that was part of it.
Right.
So
And
why not go for the whole 50?
because we won't need that, Fred, because we actually were able to get a grant for that. So for the MAPC.
So in our vote, we already said.
If you get a grant, you have to then.
Net of whatever we did
Okay,
with
so
the
we're,
grant. So that's already in.
okay, I didn't realize we got the grant, but
Yep.
okay.
Does the grant cover
Okay.
the whole amount?
You believe it does, yes.
Okay, so the only thing basically we're on the hook for is the 18
Correct.
that we gave them, so.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I don't
So-
see
and
why
that's
we-
just that's just
I
the
would
thought.
have them repurpose this 50, and if we need more, come back for another transfer, instead of saying, you now have
Because-
68.
Right, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm okay with
Discuss
that.
it, 'cause-
No, I'm okay with that. I didn't realize we had the grant. And my concern was
Yeah.
we'd already given up 30% of our
the reserve.
total
Right.
reserve fund in August. And if,
That's partially why I wanted to, to put this as a available
Yep.
thought.
No, that's
Does
fine.
that
Because
make
it's-
sense?
Yeah.
You guys?
Until we have a plan, I think, yeah.
I have, what will probably be a naive question, but we voted to give them that money. I forget where it came from.
Our reserve.
our
reserve fund.
reserve
Yes.
So now they have a grant covering most of it.
And the
Why
way,
don't we can it not just get put back in the reserve fund? Or
It
now
was
that we've
ne-
allocated it, we have
So
to use it?
so it hasn't been used. So basically, by the vote was to say if you that the finance committee took, if there's a grant, then those funds should be
Don't get
either
transferred.
refunded. So we have yet
Do
to
come
actually sign a
back, yeah.
contract
Okay.
or do anything
So
like that.
that
So
piece of it, that first vote we took, is
It
gone.
never-
They
it
have a
never
grant
left.
for that, so.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm hearing reallocate. I'm
So
like,
then.
Yeah,
we have
reallocate.
money, so then I
Our
gotta
second
find a way to
vote-
spend it.
Our
So-
second vote was $18,000 to shore up the building in there.
Yeah, yeah.
The buildings, yeah.
And now they have 50,000 available. Should we say repurpose the article so you can take care of the building with that money and don't make that transfer out of the reserve fund? If you need more money than the 50, then you can come back to us and say, we need more money. So
But
it's essentially
I thought the
anything we
50 was for
voted,
consulting services.
Right.
that's what we have the grant for.
Yeah, so this is an
And then
entirely
there's-
different article. So,
and then
this was done at I think in May 2nd, 2022, so 50,000 was set aside at that time, so for.
Oh, this is
the
different money.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh,
It's a different, different bucket of money, right.
Money coming everywhere.
I know, that's what I'm
That's
like.
right.
Okay,
right.
that was my
So
fault.
they
sorry.
It can get
Repurposing this
confusing
out.
along those, yeah, I can see where you.
Ryan's fingers never leave his hand.
That's the second time I've heard you say that today. I hadn't heard that before, but, so again, I just wanted to make it know that it's available. And by the way, too, if you commit the 18, that leaves roughly 30,000 that you could still set aside for other NAGOG building and facilities. And so you're not, that's another option. So, you've talked about it. It sounds like that's what you want to do, but it's more just to.
Well, if these
Yeah.
leases, something comes back, how quickly will that happen?
Well, that's an interesting point, because I think part of what happens with the leases is then it's a conversation with them. And what the questions we're getting are, would the town be willing to invest in this?
Yes,
Would the
yeah.
town be willing to buy this? And this might be a bucket that by the time we actually even have the conversation on Monday, we may be seeing some of those pressure points. So, it's.
So right now, barring any changes,
Mhm.
I think I'm hearing that we want to pull back our 18, let them use it from there.
Yeah,
But if
that's,
there's things that happen in the RFP process
right.
that
right.
change that, then we can discuss that Monday
Right,
night.
because I think that those are the kinds of questions we're getting to say, would the town be willing to, and I think there was, put money into the irrigation system, things of that nature, and so, I don't know what sort of appetite there is for that either, too, so.
It's kind of funny that the problem with the leases is exactly what the previous study group had said was going to happen. And, a bunch of people have left that group because they kind of got disgusted with the outcome. And so I don't know. I'm not at all surprised that there haven't been that much interest, and the interest is, as you said, and can the town do X? So
Yeah, yeah. and-
not holding my breath on any quick resolution here.
Right, that's tough,
So we're
Yeah.
kind of okay with
Yeah,
pulling back the 18,
yeah.
let them use this 50, and then come back and see us if there's anything else, or if things change
Change, yeah.
out of the RFP process.
right, okay.
Okay.
Do you want to vote on that or not? I didn't.
No, because we're going to vote everything. Things may change by Monday night, but
Okay.
we have our consensus. And
Okay, yep.
Okay.
there may be some pushback from some select board members, but
Okay, that's fine.
So staying on the theme of the Nagog Hill Orchard, Article 9 is a request from the Conservation Commission to basically transfer care and control of a portion of Lot 107 at the Nagog Hill Orchard.
Any reason they wouldn't take the entire 107? Because that's.
Yeah. So
that's
107,
that
yeah, so I
that abuts
didn't bring a map
the-
with me, but basically this is, 107 currently is the most southerly component of the orchard. It includes the lower barn, it's the former.
The field that looks down on the.
The field, there's
on
also
the
a separate
lake.
there's also a separate building that one of the workers lived in, and I think there's also another shed that's there that's kind of falling apart. Maybe, I think it may have housed some of the irrigation equipment. So what this is sort of follow-up from an earlier warrant article. I think it was like 5 years ago, but basically it's roughly basically south of the buildings and where the field is what they'd be looking to get custody and control over. So this was a presentation, they did a presentation at the select board meeting, and select board seemed to look favorably upon the request. It's really, it isn't part of the current lease that we would have out, nor necessarily
So
anything that we would be,
It's
you
not part of the
know.
conservation restriction.
Oh, correct. It's just, it's a way for them, I think, to protect this portion of the land. It also abuts the Nagog Reservoir, which is also Concord's water source. So I think that's where the logic is right now.
So the other half, I don't know whether it's half
Yeah.
or two-thirds, is just staying in Never Never Land?
Well,
with
I mean,
the
it would
select
be, you know,
board, or
so
what is
I
it?
think it's, then that becomes part of, you know, I think, as the RFP, I think, is written to say that the lower barn is, you know, could be part of the negotiation in terms of.
Oh, okay, so
the
you're already including that?
Yeah.
with-
yeah.
Okay,
So,
that's
but,
fine.
you know, and again, you don't know what's going to come back at the RFP, too. You know, it's fairly broad in terms of how they what might come back and what might be proposed. So, but this, at least as a request, doesn't, I think, impede us from doing any of those other things with the orchard, and, you know, sort of then frees up a rather,
Okay.
you know, one of the nicer parts of the whole orchard to the community, protected. So. Article 10 is to fund collective bargaining agreements. So just to provide an update to you, we've got, there's 4 unions. 2 of our unions have settled, and those amounts were voted on at the annual town meeting. That was dispatch and DPW. What still remains outstanding is police and fire. We're making progress on that, but this would be more of a placeholder if we were able to reach agreement at town meeting. So my sense is the way that it would be written would be fairly broad without any amounts.
Is it getting to the point where it'll go to arbitration, or is it
You know,
not,
at
or-
this point, it's still hard to say, Fred. It's just, but, you know, negotiations are always challenging, and we're just,
Okay.
you know, we're
You
trying to do what we
haven't
can.
got to that point yet?
Right, that's
Okay.
correct, yes. Okay, Article 11 is actually a suggestion by our town clerk. She had found some language that she was supposed to be providing to me before this meeting, but basically, it's a town meeting. It could give the town clerk the right to just basically fix Scrivener's errors. So basically, Scrivener's errors are typos or numbering issues. When we approved of, say, for example, the MBTA zoning article, there was some numbering that was off. And so normally, we're only left with the capacity to go back to town meeting and ask for a 2/3 vote to say, that shouldn't have been a C, it should have been a D. So this would potentially allow us to, you know, give permission to say, these are silly little things that, you know, that do happen, that aren't caught, that we could give.
So
permission
if
for.
the town clerk fixes 2 or 3 of these things in a bylaw, what kind of communication does she make to say, I fixed these 2 or 3 silly little details?
I think that's it. That's where I would want to see what the actual language is, because I
Okay.
think communicating that out would be important, because it can't just be like, oh, yeah, we did it, you know, in the dark of night. It would need,
Okay.
I think there would have to be some sort of reporting mechanism.
And town council's okay with giving them
We
the,
want to, what the town clerk informs me is that this has been adopted in other Massachusetts municipalities, and this would be following up on that. So, you know, ultimately, when I get to that stage of sharing this with town council and getting their perspective on the legality of it, I'm taking the town clerk on her word that, you know, we're at that point, that it will be legally acceptable. So, but of course, ultimately.
so Andrew's saying, hey, we did this in Harvard.
Yeah. Good. He hasn't said that, but yeah, so. And finally is our lone zoning article that will be presented by the planning board. I hope to have this for tonight too, but Maren didn't have it ready, but basically, one of the elements of this is that it would limit the number of grow facilities. Currently, we have 1 grow facility in town. I think that's one of the primary objectives of this. So I don't really want to speak to any more of that tonight because I just don't have a lot of information on it, but
But
any
the,
event,
but the
that's-
planning board has voted to bring it forward.
Yeah,
So,
it's
okay.
been a formal hearing. I don't know what their recommendation is or when that schedule is. I have to sort of counting on Maren to give that to me, but I have to fill that out, so. This is it. So it is not 12 articles, but 13 based upon another 1.5 million,
I
and
thought we voted on that at last town meeting.
at
For the
the,
senior center, the 1.5 million.
Did
too.
we?
I think
check.
so.
let's check. I mean, that's, why don't we keep talking, and I'll look
Okay.
that up. Jerry's got a great memory, so.
I don't.
We are meeting jointly with the select board on the 23rd.
I have this.
To make our recommendations on articles. So Ryan, if
That's September
come up
20,
with
next
September,
week.
next Monday.
Next Monday.
So if you have more language.
I will have more
if you
language,
could
and this
get it
is
out to
beautified.
the committee so
Yep.
we can look at it
Absolutely,
before the meeting.
absolutely. And as I appreciate your indulgence, because this is, yeah, again, this is, I would hope that more of this would have been brought along, but at least, it keeps the conversation
But
going. And when we come
really
in.
nothing controversial here.
Right.
The biggest thing would
Sometimes
be.
it's good to take it in smaller chunks,
From
you can
militia.
digest it
Right.
better.
And I think you'd be better prepared for when we meet with the select board too, with it too, so that's
Yeah.
good as well. So, yeah, so, okay.
All right, Shaker Lane. Hi, Rob. Yes.
Can I speak to you folks about this topic, your warrants?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So, Rob Brown's 25 Juniper Road, I thank you. I know you folks attended a stakeholder meeting about the lake funding. I've since followed up with some people, and an idea has been floated that I'd never heard about, and that was creation of a stabilization fund for the lakes. And so I suspect that that requires activity with regard to warrant articles, creation of such a fund. So I just don't know if that's one kind of influential person in town mentioning it to me, and whether it's real or whether there's no such concept of that thing.
I have not heard anything about a stabilization fund.
I haven't heard anything.
Okay, so I'll look to follow up probably with Jim Duggan just to find out if it's got any merit. Okay, thank you.
Actually, Rob reminded me, there is one other thing. I got like an email in late tonight about some potentially a transfer of, these came in very late, but basically Affordable Housing Trust is looking to potentially build a house on Tattawan Road, and so this may be looking for approval from town meeting to move forward, and I think maybe even transfer the property to a low-income developer for that. So just maybe it'd be 14 articles. We're adding more as opposed to subtracting them, so I just wanted to flag that, but that came very late, so.
Back on this Clean Lakes thing, back at one of the meetings, there was I forget who brought it up, but Westford's homeowners association along the lake was kicking in some number of dollars. Is there a homeowners association on the Littleton side that they're the ones that, on the immediate benefactors of the activities of the Clean Lakes groups? Are there any of those kinds of associations in Littleton that could
There's
help with
there's
any
a
of
Long
this?
Lake Association.
There's a Long Lake,
Yeah.
there's a Manawanakie Association.
Yeah, so do you want me to speak here, there? Do
Uh,
you want me to
Yeah,
speak?
come up so they can hear you on TV.
So, one, I'm not a member of the Clean Lakes Committee, but I've been attending meetings for
Yeah.
2 years, so I offered what I've heard. Different between Lake Manawanakie, or quote, Forge Pond, which Westford calls it
Right.
Forge Pond. Most of the homes around that pond, lake, go with their property lines directly to the waterfront.
Right.
Long Lake has only from the boat ramp going, for a very, very limited, whereas the entire area of Lakeshore Drive, that serves as the separation point, if you will, with regard to homes on the opposite side. So as a result, there is not a similar homeowners association because there's just 4 or 5 homes approximately, whereas you have a far more substantial with ability to permit docks because they own property, right next.
But a big part of the conversation was around Mattawanakee. So my question, I guess, could be either, Spec Pond or Mattawanakee. You'd have a number of properties that would benefit by
And they
cleaning
specifically
the
said that the Forge Pond Association in Westford was paying money towards the
Right,
project.
so
Yes.
my
Or
question,
matching.
So
Right.
Forge Pond, yes, and I'm trying to present the aspect of because they've got a substantial number of homeowners that have property that benefit them personally with regard to their waterfront property.
Right.
You don't really have that similar thing with,
First
question is, does
the
Mattawanakee group,
Association
you've got
kick in
the,
money?
yes, so
They do.
as I apologize, yes. In fact, in fiscal year '25, the monies that are being spent for Lake Mattawanakee are primarily being sourced from the Friends of Forge Pond, which is that homeowner association representing both Littleton and Westford homeowners.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's not something similar, as
Long
I
Lake? Yeah,
understand
I
it.
understand Long Lake, not a
Okay.
problem. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm sorry, Ryan, to jump in on.
Oh, that's fine, that's fine. I think we were all done with the warrant anyway, so, yeah.
So Shaker Lane, so I had Ryan bring the cost slide from the presentation that we had, just to refresh everybody's memory of what's going on with the project. One of the things that is happening, my understanding right now, is I had a question that I call the architects on, is there is discussion happening with the school committee, put it this way, the superintendent and the principal and whoever else is representing the schools from the School Building Association to look at the square footage, so that 103,000 square feet, to minimize that. So if you remember from the presentation, there was an extra 29,000 square feet that has been added to the project based on the educational plan. So they are going through that educational plan and seeing what they can really do to cut down the size of this building. And the size of the building comes down, the price tag should actually come down also. So there is a meeting of the building committee tomorrow night, and so I hope to hear that they've met and they've decided to adjust that number. But let's go on the case that they don't. And we're building a 103,000 square foot building. The new option, the 3.1 or the 3.2, we're talking a substantial number. 114,000 if we go see them at risk, which we've done for the past 2 new buildings that we've done.
114 million.
I don't, what did I say?
Yeah.
Oh, we can pay for that.
We'll pay that as,
Reserve fund, yeah.
Get it out of the cushions. 114 million. Like I said, we've done the past 2 buildings at CM at risk. I don't know why this one wouldn't be, and we should probably, there are pros and cons for both, and I know Steve Moore has a preference, but he may be shied away from the price tag, so. The MSBA reimbursement, really didn't like the fact that they put down this range, 30 to 35%. Just put down the number that they think it is, and I think the net for the district on one of those new bills is estimated somewhere right now, and this is just an estimate, at 85 million for our price tag, which is the largest project this town has ever done. There is no way that we can do this project without a debt exclusion vote. So we'll be asking a lot from the taxpayer. So over the next year, and if you remember from that presentation, we go to town meeting next fall and ask for the appropriation for this. And then it's some time before we actually start spending it down, because you have to appropriate the money before you do things according to the MSBA rules. So the timing of that is probably, I don't know, 2 years after that.
In terms of when it actually hits, yeah.
Somewhere. And MSBA is a reimbursement program, so bill submitted, we pay the contractor, submit the bill to MSBA, they give us their portion of that bill back, which we then use to fund the next, and it goes on like that. So the way the whole process works is you try and minimize the amount you have to borrow up front. You use their money instead of using our money as much as possible. The more we can minimize the use of our money, the more we minimize the impact on the taxpayer in those construction years. I think this presentation to this town meeting, which would really be the first time that the town has heard anything about this, is going to be as important as any presentation that's been made to this town. So that's why those 2 meetings in August, we need to... October, sorry. Say, what month? Those 2 meetings in October that we're going to have in the joint meetings prior to town meeting are essential, that we go through those and make sure that everybody is comfortable with those presentations and what is going to be said. Because if we don't have buy-in between the school committee, the select board, and the finance committee, this project goes nowhere. So we need to...
Sorry, where this is a reimbursement program, when they sign on and accept it, is it like a contract where it's a guarantee that it's not going to be that this, I mean, I know they've been around for a while, but that they could not be funded, or is there any liability that you wouldn't end up getting it for some reason once?
They have tons of rules on what they reimburse for. Certain percentage of this, certain percentage of this. You have to give them a plan up front that says what your construction budget looks like, and that's what they base their number on. If you remember, on the feasibility study, we submitted to them that we're going to spend $700,000 on feasibility study. So we submitted that. They came back and says, that's pretty light, and
You have to
upped it
spend.
to 1.2
Yeah,
million.
that's kind of where my question comes from, is like, can we
And-
submit these for reimbursement and then say, oh, well,
They will
This
only,
is the way we
they
wanted
will
it,
only
you're getting-
reimburse us for that 700,000.
Right.
So
But
that
I
extra
think- I
500,000.
think to Jerry's
is
question,
on
could they
us.
back out of it, which, that's a reasonable question. For the most part, this program has been around, and as long as it's an eligible cost, it would then
Yes.
be, then
long as
the
we-
reimbursement would
As
go
long as we
through.
follow their rules,
Right.
they'll play ball.
so the
with us.
liability is really on our part if we don't submit things properly or
Right.
the way they
Correct.
want it, okay.
Mhm. And that's why we have an owner's project manager here with us to ensure that we follow those steps so as we don't become non-compliant
Okay.
and run the
We-
risk
We've
associated with
built the
that.
high school through MSBA, the middle school, and did the rehab to Russell Street, all with the MSBA.
Okay. We
Since,
got the
and,
full amount that we were expecting on
yeah,
those
but
projects.
since those early times, the program has changed. They are much more restrictive now than they were back then, so they monitor every aspect of this, and they had to choose the OPM and the designer.
Right.
We could recommend, but it was their choice.
Right. And keep in mind that MSBA's end objective on this is to it's not, they're trying to maintain as many dollars they have in their own bucket so that they can give it to the next project. It's a very competitive program. The fact that we were able to get in as soon as we did is great. But as such, part of the rules are that it's restrictive, and they don't want to give any extra money for anything that's outside of the purview of an educational focus. Nothing superfluous from them.
So I think at the town meeting, it's critical that we tell people what the tax impact will be. Now, whether it's 108 or 114 or 102 or it's orders of magnitude. I mean, this is not only the biggest project we've ever done, it's bigger than kind of all the projects we've ever done combined. And so I think we won't be able to say your tax bill will go up exactly by this, but I think we can give them a pretty rough order of magnitude. And I think we're obligated to do that. And I don't know, I mean, just in talking to people since that meeting, I'm not holding my breath that the town ends up approving this.
Yeah, I agree. If I can give a few thoughts, and then I got to run. My son's going to kill me. So I know I didn't attend the meeting, but I watched it. I agree with you. I don't know if I'd say the meeting was a disaster, if that's the word you use, but the way it was run was, to not be able to ask questions, or, there were minimal questions. The chairman was trying to move the meeting along, and he ended up leaving the meeting early anyways. So, why not allow people to ask questions, just to get the information out there to the public, because, I knew this was coming. I think I'm relatively well informed compared to a lot of people, especially my friends. They all come to me and ask me what's going on with things, but I was shocked at the price. And, that's probably maybe I should have been more aware, but I was thinking about half the price. But I understand that's the cost of new buildings at this point, and it's the price that other towns have been paying for buildings like this. The presentation came across to me as though I'd be curious to know what the building committee wanted but didn't put in their, in their design. It comes across as though whatever they want is what they're designing. Whatever they need is what they're designing, and I'm wondering if anything was, saying, this is going to be a huge project as it is. Maybe we don't include that. Because, 100,000 square feet, $100 million plus, it just, everybody I've talked to, I've tried to talk to anyone who's willing to listen, pretty much get laughed at. I don't, I'll be very curious to see what the number is as far as what it means to individual homeowners on their tax bill for this project. I've heard a number, and if that's the number, I can't imagine this passing. Personally, I see the need. We have to do something with that building. We have to, 10 years down the line, 15, 20 years down the line, who knows where our population is going to be at. It's going to be higher than 10,000. We know that. We need to support the education in our town. But man, at this point, I just can't see how this passes. And I'm not saying I'm in favor of it or not. I don't know yet. I need, more information. But just the people I've talked to around town, it's, not being received well. And, I don't know, this is the, I don't think it's a problem that's unique to our town, but projects like these that are so enormous and will have so much impact on our town, how it's being presented to us at a point in time where we can't make changes. The finance committee, I know you were on the committee, right? The building committee, but, to present it to us as a whole, we might have been able to say, you might want to scale back if you want this approved. We need to somehow be able to get these projects out to the public much sooner. And I know, I went through this when I was on Park and Rec, to a much, much smaller scale, but, there's public meetings, people can go to them, but it's just a matter of fact that people don't have time, and they don't put the energy in for the most part to get the information. And now we have this huge project that is, a shock to everybody that I've spoken to anyways. So, I guess.
So just to answer a couple of your things. We had that general meeting on, was it a Wednesday night or
Yeah.
something? I saw the numbers for the first time the Friday before.
That's
And I'm on
crazy.
the
That's,
committee.
that's absurd,
How
yeah,
do you-
yeah.
I mean, that's,
So, I hear you. I was just as shocked, but it is what it is right now.
no,
And we have a year to make this number manageable to what the town needs. And if the town says no, the town says no.
If they are able to downsize it, you talked about like 29,000 square feet or something they were trying to play with. How does that affect our approval process in the MSBA since they've done everything based on these numbers?
MSBA approved, or has a standard here, so it's 70,000 square feet, say, roughly, that is part of their project. And they have a detailed grid that says that the educational program that was done by the school department to go along with this says, okay, pre-K needs this much space, special ed needs this much more space. All those needs added up to an extra 29,000 square feet. It goes to MSBA. MSBA looks at that and says, okay, we hear you. We didn't allocate anything for pre-K. You have a pre-K program. We would support adding X number of square feet for that project. So that's the process when we submitted at the end of August, those three proposals, that's what they're doing now at MSBA. They're going through that data and saying, okay, we can see this, we're not going to support this, we will support this.
So can we change the proposal now?
I thought they said at the meeting we could not.
No.
But I thought you said
It's in.
tonight that some of the school committee, some of the,
They're looking to see
they're
whether
looking to
that's
see if we
actually
could reduce
needed.
it, but if we were able
Absolutely.
to reduce it, if they felt that we could reduce it, then it has to go back to MSBA to be approved? We couldn't just cut the square footage because our school
I'll ask that
says,
question tomorrow night.
okay,
I apologize.
Do you know?
sorry.
Thank you.
Do you know anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think that part of what they're, the thing that, the non-changing part of it was at that point, the three proposals that were being put forth, so,
Nothing's been designed yet.
right.
So this is just what the architects right now feel, based on the educational program that the school department did up. This is the space that you would need to support that.
And it's a takeoff from the amount of square footage. So if you have that amount of square footage, this is roughly what we're seeing in others. And then it's really the square footage that spurs a lot of the cost.
Right, but,
Once they get into design,
yeah,
and they actually sit down and start drawing this stuff out, they may see some savings on that and saying, oh, we totally overestimated that. Hopefully it goes that way, not the other way.
and that won't affect our approval in the program because it's now it doesn't fit, because you're just talking about how the guidelines are so strict, so now
They will
it's not this.
do what, they will support the size of right now they'll support 70, and if they say you get an extra 10,000 square feet for pre-K, that's the number that they will support.
Okay, so 70 is the
So we just
minimum.
have to know that if we build anything over those guidelines, it's on our dime. And
They
not,
won't provide any
I'm
reimbursement.
more wondering if we build under, does it make us does that lose our eligibility?
No.
Okay.
The 70,000 is the cap.
Okay.
So, but, right.
And they're not paying 100%.
Right,
They're paying significantly less, because they reimburse in the 600-ish range. And all these numbers are basically $1,000 a square foot. So the town's on the hook for a minimum of $400 a square foot, plus the $1,000 a square foot over 70,000 or 80,000.
Oh, whatever they approve.
Yeah,
Yes.
over whatever they approve. So it gets bigger than the bread box
So this isn't
really, really
necessarily
quick.
what they've approved?
I'm sorry?
This isn't approved?
No.
This is-
No,
okay.
it's very
Not-
preliminary.
Nothing has been approved or anything.
Just we're approved to be
This
in the
is just,
program.
Right.
here,
Okay.
this is what we're,
Boxes, basically, is what.
MSBA, this is what we're
Okay.
thinking of doing
Gotcha,
right now.
okay.
That's all it is.
And keep in mind, as we go from the current building of 62-ish thousand to, a little less than double that of 103, the folks at the last meeting said we're only gaining 10% more student capacity, which I understand they're overcrowded now, but when you almost double the square footage of the building and you only add 10% of student capacity, that's,
When was the last time you were in the building?
I say, I understand
No,
that they're
no,
overcrowded.
I'm serious. When was the last time? Maybe we should organize a,
I think so.
Finance Committee Select Board tour of the building. Because I went through it, and they are jammed in that building.
I
There's-
get it.
There's a teacher's, what used to be a teacher's break room that is now 3 classrooms.
I get it. Part of the thing too, Steve, is that I'll be honest, I think this is a non-starter for the town to approve. And if that's the case, we still need to do something for Shaker. So I guess what I'm saying is, if it's gonna fail, I'd rather it fail sooner and let us react than let us go 2 more years into the process and have it fail.
That's why this presentation is critical, yes.
Right, but I think the presentation has to be set to, we're trying to present to the town, but I think we're also gauging from the town, is this even possible that you're gonna that you, the town, is gonna approve it?
Absolutely.
Because I think at that point, then, we all have to say, okay, we have a chance, or we don't have a chance, let's try something else. Okay, great.
I
That-
totally agree with you.
Excellent, I'm really glad to hear that.
I mean, I think my suggestion too is that you also then, that you're going to give the town information about what the number is, but you also have to give them an explanation of the reason why the current building isn't meeting with standards, what they would be getting out of that, and in terms of participating in this program and what that building would look like. Because, just as there are consequences for the success of this program, there are also consequences for the failure of what this would be in terms of, it's not like you just get right back in the MSBA queue with it. So so either way, there are consequences that are serious and significant.
Absolutely. Look, I was in Winchester when they had downsized in enrollment. They sold, 2 of their 6 elementary schools, and then enrollment came right back up, and they went to portables for a while. And I think, to Mike's point, I remember when we did what seemed like whopping $4.4 million reno on Shaker. I don't even want to guess how long ago that was. It seems like it was not that long ago. But and that was,
2001, the 2001 renovation?
yeah, but it was 4.4 million, to add some classrooms, and I think I thought, okay, new Shaker has 30 million. Oh my God, maybe it's 40 million, but the 114 is just, yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I think that, I think you just have to let the process play itself out. I mean, one of the things is, if this, with this proposal, one of the things I was watching, and I was participating in being at home, but, and the reaction was, it's a very significant number at $110 million. But I would tell you that the way I was thinking of it was that if anyone looked at that and looked at it favorable, on like seeing that number for the first time, that would also be the first time that ever happened at any public meeting ever, because it's a shocking number, right? So your reaction is completely understandable, but it's also too is you could go back, set back the time warp. I mean, if you said to the city of Newton North was going to cost more than $200 million back at that time, I think that was shocking to think that a school could cost that much. And it's just some of this is. It's a little bit where the marketplace is. So I think it's just, all I'm saying is just keep an open mind as you enter the process, because, if you lose the opportunity of what the MSBA process offers, it's, the cost could be fully on our dime, and that's a consequence too, so.
So the other thing that if we do start to move forward with this project, which in some way we have to, because something needs to be done, it's up to us to try and minimize that impact to the taxpayer as much as possible.
Of course.
Now, is putting $1 million into the stabilization fund for this building going to make a dent in it? Probably not. But it's going to do something. Now, is reducing the amount we're going to borrow for it better than maybe holding it off, accumulating that money and using it like the debt stabilization account, where we're taking inside the levy money and paying the debt service a little each year? We've been doing that for the past 10 years on the debt we have now. People don't even realize it, but we're saving like 17, 18 cents per year on the tax rate. That's real money to somebody. So it's figuring out what's the best bang for the buck. And we need to make sure that we've thought of everything we possibly can between now and next fall to say, okay, taxpayer, this is what you're going to be on the hook for, and these are the steps we're taking to minimize that as much as possible.
Right, and paying that inside levy is awesome, but, when we did that with the high school, there was definitely
No, I'm not
service
saying
impacts.
paying the project inside the levy. I'm saying, just like we're doing the debt exclusion stabilization account, we're taking inside the levy money and paying the excluded debt service that the taxpayer is supposed to pick up.
Right, right.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is that a better solution than putting $1 million into the kitty and seeing no return for it?
Yeah,
That's. But
We thought last year was hard.
we have a year. Basically, we have a year from this fall. That's it.
There's going to be a lot happening with it, in terms of education, outreach. So, I just emphasize this is really for the town and the outreach side of things, this is the beginning of that process, not the end.
Absolutely.
And as much as we can, and, to make sure that this committee stays on top of things. Every meeting that we have, I will give an update of what's happening with the project, but I know we should be thinking of joint meetings with the select board, so we all hear the same stuff every once in a while, and at least maybe once a month, even get the OPM in to talk about the project and talk what's going on. I mean, we're paying them, so.
Realistically, if this goes forward, there aren't going to be any kids in the new building for 4 years.
Right.
Realistically,
4 or 5
4, maybe
years.
5 years.
Yeah.
What I'm disappointed in this whole process is I heard nothing about how we're going to bridge where we are to where we're going.
What do you mean?
Well, supposedly, we have this new educational plan to bring Shaker Lane into the 21st century. So nothing's going to happen for 5 years to bring us into the 21st century. To Brian's point, temporary classrooms were fine for Acton while they got ready to build the huge new school they have up there to alleviate the crowding in the 2 smaller schools that they did away with. I heard nothing about that. The school's sitting on all sorts of money. They could bring in a couple of classrooms. They could put their pre-K program out there, free up a couple of classrooms, give them some elbow room, do some of the extra. I didn't hear any of that. It was all, woe is me, woe is me. Give me $100 million and we're going to have this wonderful school at the end of the rainbow. Give me something that says you're doing something for the kids over the next 5 years.
Okay.
I mean,
Great point.
to
Great
me,
point.
that bothered me more than anything. So So, and maybe I'm overreacting, but, if it's really that crowded and that's the issue, you can alleviate it tomorrow.
Okay. Any other discussion, Shagalene? You good? Budget? FY '26, Ryan?
Okay, before I kick that in, I want to give input of Jerry, because I did find that we, on Article 21, from the annual town meeting, we actually did approve of the 1.5 million and expanding the.
Excellent, so we're back down to 12 articles.
So back down to 12 articles, going up, going down here. This is, so, Jerry, thank you for that, thank you for that reminder.
That says it don't mess with Jerry.
Just having this deja vu, I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, no, well, yeah, I didn't remember it either, and Nelson didn't put it in, but thank you for that, so, I appreciate that. So this is just the schedule that we have that's part of our updated financial management policy. So first pieces of this is the financial projections that for 5-year, we'll be presenting a 5-year, and then working on the budget message. So, we're starting to have some of those preliminary conversations now internally about what the 5-year projection is and what our FY '26 projection will look like. That will help inform what the budget message should be. So we are going to be making some more progress on that. I don't think we're going to be ready to present anything to you at the joint meeting this upcoming Monday, but probably soon thereafter. So
I mean, the meeting after that, maybe?
probably, yeah, I would think by then, absolutely.
And
So-
when's that meeting?
Let's see, that would be after 2 weeks after the 23rd, so we're looking at, it would be October 7th, I think.
Okay.
we're looking at.
So is that a joint meeting, or is that?
Probably, we could make it a joint meeting, yeah, we probably could make it a joint meeting. I think
mean, either way,
your
I just-
suggestion about the joint meetings is a really good one, because then I think everybody is starting to hear these things at the same time, and I think that, just as we did our budget updates, it's been, I don't know, I don't know what the finance committee thinks, but I think it's good when the select board's hearing messages from
Yeah,
the
everybody
finance
hears the
committee and
same
vice
thing.
versa, but also too, that they're hearing from you too. And I think that, I think that's very valid.
I just never thought it worked where we were Tuesday night, they were a Monday night. Do you give the stuff to the finance committee before you give it to the select board? And some select boards didn't like that. And then we're hearing things the week after that, and
Yeah, and different questions come up
Yeah.
each time.
then you gotta go back and
Information.
Right.
just meeting together, I
As
think,
long as the
saves so
joint
much more.
portion of the meeting is the first article. So we don't have to sit.
I will not.
Oh, they'll always do that for you.
I will
yeah.
not be
Invites
here on
and
the
all that other
7th.
good stuff
Okay,
the select board
All right,
has to
but
do.
yeah, but we can, again, that's
So it'll
we will communicate. So
be Fred.
the other pieces with it is then around the end of October, the budget documents are due after the initial letter is sent out to all of our department heads, and then October and November, Finance Committee starts meeting with the individual departments. I think that it's a question of how you guys want to structure that. I think last year was pretty effective, where the different members had different responsibilities to meet with different department heads. I can tell you from my perspective, seeing that it's very helpful having having someone come back to you that's got that knowledge and said, okay, you were here last year, and, Brian, you were doing the police department, so, okay, you have that conversation.
wanna
Again,
keep that up.
it
It's
provides a certain continuity
Yeah,
to, and so I think that helps on both sides.
Why you should build that leaking again.
So that's helpful. And then, so the school committee goal is to have their budget submitted by the first. Part of the guideline we give them would be from, in terms of their budget directive, would also be taking place in that letter. Then we submit the annual budget report in the December-January timeframe. I believe last year we did it right between the week before, between Christmas and New Year's. February and April, we then probably start having more of our joint budget meetings. For that, we typically have, what we've done the past couple of years, at least since I've been here, is to sort of piggyback some of those Monday meetings, make those joint meetings, as well as have our Super Saturday session over at the library to go through any remaining questions. Our annual town meeting will be, it does say the first Tuesday in May, but I think yes, actually, that is right. That is it would be the first Tuesday in May, right? Because we changed from Monday. And then we're back at it again where the financial policy working group would be meeting in and making any recommended changes at that time. So yeah, that's the overall schedule. I think things are going well with the finance team. We're meeting regularly. We're aiming for our tax classification. I can't remember the specific date, but we have that set up. We used to do that as 2 separate meetings, but now we've convinced the board to just have it as one, because a lot of times we get to the second meeting and like, what did we talk about 2 weeks ago? So this provides for convenience.
And at this point, Ryan, how do you feel about the October 31st date? I mean, we're already sort of...
Yeah, so that
tight.
I think that may get bumped a little bit into November, but shouldn't change. It shouldn't impact our overall schedule that
Okay.
much. So yes. So again, feeling pretty good where we are overall, but we'll be able to be engaging with you some more with that projection probably again at our meeting, the first meeting in October, on the 7th technically. Technically.
Okay. Any questions, Ryan?
Nope.
Thank you, Ryan. We have one last thing. We have minutes I sent out this afternoon. Hope everybody had a chance to look at them. These are from our joint sessions with the Select Board, August 12th. I wrote it down if I could find an agenda. August 12th and 24th. If not, we can just hold off till next meeting, if that's okay.
Well, I wasn't at the first one, so I can't vote on that.
Why don't we hold off then? I also sent out the treasurer's cash report, something that's required from our investment policy for the town. So just take a look at it. If there's any questions, just get them to me and I can funnel them off to Robin. I looked at it and I don't have any issues with it. As of June 30th, we had, I think it was $129 million in the bank, which is up significantly from just a few years ago. So that's always a factor of borrowing, too. You're sitting on money that you've borrowed that you haven't expended yet. So, all right, everybody good? We'll do the minutes the next meeting. Next meeting jointly is Monday night with the Select Board at the library, 6:30?
6:30, correct, yeah.
6:30.
We'll have the review of the warrant and the recommendations, as well as you'll be seeing, Alicia will not be here, but it will be Tim providing that presentation.
Right. Okay.
And so then our next meeting would normally be on the 8th, but maybe we'd move it to the 7th and joint.
Yeah, the 7th would probably be a joint meeting with the Select Board again
Yeah,
to
okay.
go over the forecast.
So then we wouldn't then meet again on the 8th?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Just trying to...
We have 2 joint meetings in October, so if we need to cover something with the Select Board prior to town meeting, we could do it at that second meeting. And
Yeah, and we can always, if
Before
there's
or
ever any
after.
of the minutes or anything, we can always put that on.
Okay, everybody good? We have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Switch.